Admiral James stood at the massive viewing window of the Imperial Command Station, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The endless sea of stars before him held a new mystery, one that made him increasingly uneasy. "Display the report again," he commanded. The holographic screen materialized, filling the air with a soft blue glow. Data about the newly discovered species called humans scrolled past his eyes. The initial reports seemed ordinary enough. A young civilization that had just reached their moon, developed basic space stations, and established a small colony on their neighboring red planet. Their technology was primitive by imperial standards. Chemical rockets, basic AI systems, and early plasma engines. But something wasn't right. James had served the Galactic Empire for over 40 years. He had overseen the integration, or subjugation, of 17 different species. None of them had made him feel this concerned. "Computer, show me their historical development timeline." The screen shifted, displaying a graph of human technological progress. Most species followed a steady, predictable curve of advancement. Humans, however, showed something different. Their progress came in sharp bursts, often accelerating dramatically during times of conflict. "Computer, focus on their warfare history." The screen filled with images and data from countless human conflicts. What he saw made him lean forward, his golden admiral's insignia catching the light. In just a few hundred years, they had gone from fighting with primitive gunpowder weapons to splitting atoms, from basic flight to space travel in mere decades. "Sir," his assistant, Officer Reed, entered the room with another datapad. "The Council is ready for your report." James nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on one particular detail. Humans were the only known species to have developed nuclear weapons, used them in war, and then chose not to use them again. They had the capacity for tremendous violence, yet also remarkable restraint. The council chamber was as imposing as ever. 12 senior admirals sat in a semicircle, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of their display screens. Admiral James, High Commander Stone, spoke first, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Your preliminary report on Species 2749, designated humans, suggests they are ready for standard integration protocols. Why have you requested this special session?" James stepped forward, his boots clicking on the polished floor. "High Commander, members of the Council, I believe standard integration protocols would be unwise in this case." Murmurs filled the chamber. The Empire had used the same integration approach for over 1,000 years. A show of overwhelming force, demands for submission, and quick subjugation of any resistance. These humans, James continued, activating the central display, show unusual characteristics. Their adaptation rate during conflict is unprecedented. They've developed strategies to overcome superior forces multiple times in their history. They, Admiral, Stone interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "Every species fights back initially. Our technological superiority has never failed to prevail. With respect, High Commander, these humans are different. They don't just fight. They adapt. They improvise. They take their enemy's strengths and turn them into weaknesses. And most importantly, they unite in the face of external threats." The council members exchanged looks of amusement. James felt his jaw tighten. They weren't seeing it. "Look at their entertainment media," he pressed on. "For centuries, they've been imagining and preparing for extraterrestrial conflict. They've conceived of countless scenarios of alien invasion. They've mentally prepared their entire species for this possibility. Fiction is hardly a basis for military strategy, Admiral." Another council member scoffed. James took a deep breath. "My recommendation is to either approach them peacefully for genuine diplomatic relations or avoid contact entirely. Standard integration protocols will likely result in a prolonged conflict with an unpredictable opponent." High Commander Stone stood up, his expression stern. "Admiral James, your concerns are noted but dismissed. The integration fleet will launch as scheduled. Humans will learn, like all others, that resistance against the Empire is futile. As James left the council chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Empire was about to make a terrible mistake. In all his years of service, he had never seen a species that thrived on challenge quite like humans did. And the Empire was about to give them the biggest challenge of their history. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter, its 100 ships casting long shadows across the gas giant's storms. Admiral Stone stood on his command bridge, a satisfied smile on his face as he watched the massive warships move into formation. "Send the message to their primitive detection systems," he ordered. "Let's see how quickly they respond to our diplomatic greeting." Earth's response came faster than expected. Within hours, a transmission reached them, clear, coordinated, and in perfect Imperial Standard language. The Empire's linguists had secretly collected Earth's communications for months, but they hadn't expected humans to decode Imperial language so quickly. "This is Mark Thompson, Earth's United Defense Ambassador." The transmission began. "We welcome peaceful contact with galactic civilizations." Stone's smile widened. These humans were even more naive than he'd expected. "Put him on the main screen," he commanded. The human that appeared looked calm and composed, wearing what must have been their formal diplomatic attire. "Ambassador Thompson," Stone began, "the Galactic Empire offers Earth the generous opportunity to join our civilization. Accept our guidance, and your transition will be peaceful." Through the video feed, Mark's expression remained professional, but his eyes hardened slightly. "We appreciate the offer, Admiral. However, Earth would prefer to discuss equal diplomatic relations rather than guidance." Stone's smile faded. No primitive species had ever dared to counter his initial offer. "Perhaps you don't understand your situation, Ambassador. The Empire's fleet." "We understand perfectly," Mark interrupted politely. "We've been monitoring your fleet's approach for the past month. Impressive ships, by the way, particularly the cloaked vessels you have positioned near Mars." Stone's face paled. Their stealth ships were supposed to be undetectable to primitive technology. Behind him, his bridge crew exchanged worried glances. "A misunderstanding." Stone recovered quickly. "Those ships are merely additional diplomatic escorts." "Of course," Mark nodded, his tone remaining pleasant. "Just as our own diplomatic preparations are purely defensive." As if on cue, Stone's tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, we're detecting multiple energy signatures activating throughout Earth's solar system. They weren't there a moment ago." On Earth, in the underground United Defense Command Center, Mark turned to General Roberts after ending the transmission. "They took the bait. Their scans are now focused on our decoy signals." Roberts nodded grimly. "Their arrogance is our advantage. The real defense grid remains undetected." He looked at the massive screen showing the Imperial fleet's position. "Their ships are impressive, but their tactics are predictable. They've used the same approach on 17 other worlds." Admiral James's warning helped, Mark added. The Empire's internal communications encryption had been surprisingly easy to break once they knew what to look for. He tried to tell them about us, but they wouldn't listen. "Their loss," Roberts smiled. "Operation Trojan Horse is ready. All civilian ships have been cleared from the Mars colony, replaced with automated systems and drones. If they follow their usual pattern, they'll attack Mars first," Mark finished. "A show of force against our most vulnerable target." He looked at the tactical display, where hundreds of small dots represented Earth's hidden defenders. "Let them think they've won that battle." Back on the Imperial flagship, Stone was growing frustrated. The humans were being impossibly polite, yet somehow managed to deflect or ignore every subtle threat he made. Their responses were too measured, too careful. "Sir," his tactical officer called out again, "the human Mars colony appears largely automated. Minimal life signs detected." Stone's frustration turned to excitement. "Perfect. They've abandoned their weakest position." He turned to his command staff. "Prepare a precision strike on their Mars infrastructure." Show them what happens when they reject Imperial guidance. As the Imperial fleet moved into attack position, none of them noticed the small, seemingly insignificant changes in Mars' orbit. None of them recognized that the colony's automated systems were far more than they appeared to be. And none of them realized that humans had spent centuries imagining this exact scenario in their stories and games, planning countless ways to defeat a technologically superior invader. The Empire was about to learn why Admiral James had been so worried. The Imperial fleet's weapons lit up the space around Mars, their energy beams cutting through what they thought were simple colony structures. Admiral Stone watched with satisfaction as explosions bloomed across the red planet's surface. "Send the message to Earth again," Stone commanded. "Let's see if they're ready to submit now." But before his communications officer could act, alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display suddenly filled with hundreds of new signals. "Sir," his sensor officer shouted, "the destroyed colony structures. They're releasing something." What the Empire had thought were simple buildings were actually cleverly disguised launch facilities. As the Imperial weapons hit them, they didn't just explode. They launched thousands of small objects directly at the Imperial fleet. "Impossible," Stone whispered as he watched the screen. The humans had turned their entire Mars colony into a trap. On Earth, General Roberts watched the operation unfold. "Activate Project Hornet's nest," he ordered. The small objects, barely larger than human fighter craft, swarmed toward the Imperial ships. The Empire's advanced shields, designed to stop powerful energy weapons, struggled against these primitive but effective kinetic weapons. They're using simple metal projectiles. Stone couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Power up the energy shields to maximum." "Sir, that's the problem," his chief engineer reported. "Our shields are calibrated for energy weapons. These are just chunks of metal moving at extremely high speeds. We're wasting power trying to stop them." The Imperial fleet scrambled to adjust their defenses, but the humans weren't done. Hidden thrusters on Mars's surface fired up, releasing clouds of metallic dust into space. Dust that played havoc with Imperial sensors and communication systems. "We're being blinded," Stone's tactical officer reported. "And there's more. The dust is somehow eating through our hull plating." On Earth, Mark watched the battle from the command center. "Nanites," he explained to the officers around him, "designed to target the specific alloys used in Imperial ships. We can thank Admiral James' leaked reports for that information." The Imperial fleet's formation broke apart as ships tried to escape the storm of projectiles and corrosive dust. But that was exactly what Earth's defenders had waited for. "Launch the real attack," General Roberts ordered. From behind Mars' moons emerged Earth's true warships. They were smaller than Imperial vessels, but more maneuverable. While the Empire had expected primitive chemical rockets, these ships used hybrid drives combining Earth's best technology with reversed-engineered Imperial systems. "Sir," Stone's bridge crew was now in panic. "Enemy ships approaching from multiple vectors. Their weapons are. They're using our own shield frequencies against us." Stone finally understood. The humans hadn't just prepared for this fight. They had spent months studying the Empire's every weakness. Each human ship carried different weapons, making it impossible to defend against all of them at once. Some fired traditional missiles, others used electromagnetic pulses, and some simply rammed the Imperial ships with guided asteroids. There was no pattern, no standard doctrine to predict and counter. "Fall back," Stone ordered, his voice shaking. "Reform the fleet beyond Mars' orbit." But as his ships tried to retreat, they discovered another human trick. The space around Mars had been filled with small gravity distortion devices, hidden until now. Imperial ships, trying to jump to safe distances, found their calculations disrupted. "They've trapped us in normal space," Stone realized with horror. "We can't make the jump to hyperspace." On Earth, Mark received a transmission from one of the human fleet commanders. "The Empire's ships are in disarray. Should we press the attack?" Mark looked at General Roberts, who nodded. Show them why you don't start a fight with humanity. The battle that followed would become legendary. Imperial ships, despite their advanced technology, fell one by one to human ingenuity. The smaller Earth vessels darted between their larger enemies, using the Empire's own formation against them. Several Imperial ships were hit by friendly fire in the confusion. As Stone watched his mighty fleet crumble, he remembered Admiral James's warning. These humans hadn't just prepared for a fight. They had spent their entire history preparing for this exact moment. And this was only the beginning. The Imperial High Council chamber had never been so quiet. The holographic display in the center showed the devastating defeat at Mars, playing on repeat as the council members watched in stunned silence. Impossible, one admiral whispered. Half the fleet, destroyed by primitives. Admiral James stood before them, his expression grim. This is what I warned you about. But there's worse news. He gestured, and the display changed to show new intelligence reports. The humans didn't just destroy our ships. They captured 3 of them intact. The chamber erupted in chaos. Captured Imperial technology was unprecedented. Every species before humans had been too afraid or too overwhelmed to even try. How long? High Commander Stone demanded, his voice shaking. How long until they understand our technology? They already have, James replied quietly. The humans. They're different. Look at this. The display showed human factories working at impossible speeds. They weren't just copying Imperial technology. They were improving it. Where Imperial ships used pure energy shields, humans created hybrid defenses using both energy and physical barriers. Where Imperial weapons focused on raw power, humans modified them for efficiency and surprise. Their entire planet has shifted to war production, James continued, but not in the way we expected. Each region is making different weapons, different modifications. There's no single pattern to predict. In Earth's main research facility, Dr. Lisa Walker moved between workstations, watching teams of scientists examine captured Imperial technology. Unlike the Empire's rigid research protocols, humans threw out the rulebook. They tried everything, even ideas that seemed impossible. Look at this, she said, pointing to a modified Imperial engine. They use pure quantum fields for propulsion, but if we combine it with our primitive chemical rockets, she smiled, the explosion gives us twice the speed. Across the facility, other teams made similar discoveries. Imperial computer systems, designed for perfect logic, couldn't handle human randomness. Human hackers created chaos in Imperial networks simply by being unpredictable. They're learning too fast, another council member protested, watching the reports. This defies all known patterns of technological development. Because we gave them exactly what they needed, James explained. Humans thrive on reverse engineering. Their entire history is built on seeing new technology and thinking, we can make this better. The display shifted to show Earth's orbital shipyards. New vessels were under construction, but they looked nothing like traditional ships from either side. They combined Imperial technology with human innovation in ways the Empire had never imagined. Sir, an officer burst into the council chamber. We've lost contact with our observation posts in the Beta sector. The humans, they're not just defending, they're expanding. James nodded sadly. Of course they are. We showed them faster than light travel was possible. Now they're improving it. Our standard engines take 3 jumps to cross a sector. They're new hybrid drives. He paused. They do it in 1. The council watched as more reports flooded in. Human ships appeared and disappeared across Imperial space, using tactics no one had seen before. They didn't try to hold territory like the Empire expected. Instead, they struck fast, learned from each encounter, and adapted their strategies constantly. How do we stop them? Stone demanded. We don't, James replied. The moment we attacked Mars, we gave humanity a reason to unite and a target to focus on. They're not just fighting us. They're treating this war like a puzzle to be solved. In Earth's command center, General Roberts reviewed the latest battle reports. Human ships now carried multiple types of weapons, switching between them to confuse Imperial defenses. Each defeat taught them something new, and every victory gave them more technology to study. "The Empire still doesn't understand," Mark said, standing beside him. "They think we'll follow their rules of war, their patterns of conquest." Roberts smiled. "That's their biggest mistake. Humanity has imagined this scenario in 1,000 stories. We've been preparing for this fight since before we knew it was coming." As they spoke, another report came in. A human science team had just cracked the secrets of Imperial faster-than-light communication. But instead of copying it, they were already working on making it better. The Empire had started this war expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had awakened humanity's greatest strength: the ability to adapt, improve, and overcome any challenge they faced. And they were just getting started. The space near Jupiter turned into a blazing light show as the largest battle of the war began. 500 Imperial warships faced off against 300 human vessels. But numbers didn't tell the whole story. "All ships, execute battle plan Chaos," General Roberts commanded from the Earth flagship Defiance. The name seemed fitting. Humanity had spent the last 6 months defying every rule of space combat the Empire knew. The human fleet suddenly split into smaller groups, each moving in patterns that seemed random to Imperial commanders. This was humanity's new battle strategy: organized chaos. "They're scattered, vulnerable." Imperial Commander Reed ordered his ships to attack. "Focus fire on the isolated groups." But this was exactly what the humans wanted. As Imperial ships moved to attack, the space around them changed. Hidden human devices activated, creating artificial gravity wells that slowed Imperial ships. "Sir," Reed's tactical officer shouted, "the human ships, they're releasing something." Thousands of small objects poured out from the human vessels. Some were decoys, some were weapons, and some were simply chunks of metal. Imperial sensors couldn't tell which was which. "Impossible to predict their attacks," Reed muttered. "Every ship is doing something different." From his position on a cloaked observation ship, Admiral James watched with a mixture of awe and sadness. The Empire's mighty fleet, with its perfect formations and standard tactics, was being torn apart by human unpredictability. One human ship would fire traditional missiles, while another used experimental gravity weapons. A third would release clouds of nanites that ate through Imperial hulls. There was no pattern to counter, no standard defense to use. "Look how they coordinate," James noted to his aide. "Each human ship acts independently, but somehow works perfectly with the others." On the Defiance, General Roberts watched his plan unfold. "Launch Operation Solar Storm," he ordered. The human fleet's seemingly random movements suddenly made sense. They had herded the Imperial ships into exactly the right position. Hidden devices around Jupiter activated, using the gas giant's magnetic field to create a massive electromagnetic pulse. Imperial ships, relying heavily on energy shields, suddenly found their defenses weakened. But human vessels, protected by both physical armor and energy shields, pushed forward through the storm. "This is your last chance to surrender," Mark's voice transmitted to all Imperial ships. He had insisted on giving them this option, even though many wanted to press the attack. Commander Reed stared at his failing systems in disbelief. The humans hadn't just matched Imperial technology. They had found entirely new ways to use it. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, "we're detecting new energy signatures." The humans, they're powering up something big. Behind the human fleet, a massive device activated near one of Jupiter's moons. It was humanity's newest weapon, a gravity lance that combined Imperial quantum technology with Earth's understanding of space-time. "They wouldn't dare," Reed whispered. "That much gravitational force could tear their own ships apart." But humans had always been willing to take risks their enemies thought impossible. The gravity lance fired, creating a controlled gravitational wave that rippled through space. Human ships, knowing it was coming, had already moved to safe positions. The Imperial fleet wasn't so lucky. Ships caught in the wave found their own mass working against them. Some were crushed, others were torn apart, and the rest were scattered across the Jupiter system. Status report. Roberts called out as the wave dissipated. 342 Imperial ships destroyed or disabled. His tactical officer reported. The rest are retreating. Our losses, minimal. The battle for Jupiter had lasted less than 2 hours. The Empire's largest fleet had been defeated by a smaller force using technology that hadn't existed 6 months ago. As news of the victory spread across human space, celebrations began. But in the command center, Mark and Roberts shared a serious look. This wasn't just a victory, it was a turning point. Send word to all human colonies and ships, Mark ordered. Operation Liberation begins now. It's time to free the other species under Imperial control. The Empire had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior technology. But they had never faced an enemy who could take that technology, improve it, and turn it against them. The age of Imperial dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The Imperial Palace shook as another explosion rocked the capital city. High Commander Stone stood at his window, watching as his perfect world crumbled. The news from across the galaxy was all the same, rebellion after rebellion, all inspired by the humans. "Sir," an officer rushed in, his uniform dusty from the building's shaking. "We've lost contact with the Centauri sector. The enslaved species there. They're using human weapons." Stone slammed his fist on the desk. Things had spiraled out of control faster than anyone could have predicted. After their victory at Jupiter, the humans hadn't just continued fighting. They had started teaching other species how to fight back. In a distant star system, aboard the human diplomatic ship Hope, Mark met with leaders of various alien races. The room was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, each representing a species that had suffered under Imperial rule. "The Empire took our technology," Mark explained, showing them the modified weapons humans had developed. They thought that made them invincible. But technology isn't about who has the biggest ships or the strongest weapons. It's about how you use what you have. The alien leaders watched in amazement as Mark demonstrated simple but effective ways to disable Imperial systems. Humans weren't just giving them weapons. They were teaching them to think differently about warfare. Back in the Imperial Palace, the High Council gathered for an emergency meeting. The holographic displays showed red alerts across half the galaxy. "The Beetle people of Sector 7 have destroyed 3 Imperial fleets," one admiral reported, his voice shaking. "They're using old mining ships filled with explosives. The Imperial ships don't even see them as threats until it's too late." "The crystal beings in the Orion Arm have developed some kind of sonic weapon," another added. "They combine their natural abilities with human technology. Our shields can't stop it." Stone watched as more reports flooded in. Every species that the Empire had conquered was learning from humanity's example. They weren't just copying human tactics, they were creating their own ways to fight back. Admiral James, now officially working with the humans, stood on the bridge of a human warship. He watched as another Imperial fleet surrendered to a combined force of humans and recently liberated species. "They still don't understand," he said to General Roberts, who stood beside him. "The Empire gave everyone the same weapons, the same ships, the same tactics. But humans showed them that being different is an advantage." Across Imperial space, the rebellion spread like wildfire. Species that had been enemies under Imperial rule now worked together, each bringing their unique strengths to the fight. The flying clouds of Beta Centauri used their natural ability to change density to slip through Imperial defenses. The rock dwellers of Sirius turned their mining equipment into powerful weapons. Each victory inspired more species to rise up. In Earth's command center, Dr. Lisa Walker reviewed reports from across the galaxy. "Every species we help adds something new to our understanding," she explained to her team. "The Empire thought technology was about power. We showed everyone it's about innovation." The Empire tried to respond with brute force, sending massive fleets to crush the rebellions. But they found themselves fighting enemies who refused to play by Imperial rules. Ships would appear from nowhere, strike in unexpected ways, and vanish before the Empire could respond. "Sir," an officer interrupted Stone's thoughts. "We're receiving reports. The outer colonies are declaring independence. Our own people are turning against us." Stone sank into his chair, finally understanding the true disaster. The Empire hadn't just lost control of its conquered species, it had lost control of its own civilization. The rigid structure that had maintained power for so long was now its greatest weakness. "Send the message," he finally ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Call all fleets back to defend the core worlds. We can't hold the outer territories anymore." As the Empire retreated into its core systems, the galaxy transformed. New alliances formed between species, each learning from humans while developing their own ways of fighting. The Empire's perfect order was replaced by something more chaotic, but also more alive. Humanity had done more than defeat the Empire. They had changed the very nature of galactic civilization. The Great Hall of the newly built Galactic Council on Earth looked nothing like the old Imperial chambers. Instead of the cold, uniform design the Empire preferred, this room celebrated diversity. Representatives from 50 different species sat together, each section designed for their unique forms and needs. In the center stood Mark, now speaking not just for Earth, but for the coalition that had changed the galaxy. Before him sat the remaining Imperial leadership, including High Commander Stone, here to sign the formal surrender. "The Empire's time of absolute rule is over," Mark announced, his voice carrying across the hall. "But we're not here for revenge. We're here to build something new." Admiral James, standing with the human delegation, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had warned the Empire about humans, and now those warnings had become history. But even he hadn't expected things to change this much. "The terms are simple," Mark continued. "All enslaved worlds will be freed. The Empire will be reduced to its original core systems." But he raised his hand as murmurs filled the room. "We offer partnership, not punishment." Stone looked up in surprise. After all the Empire had done, the humans were offering cooperation. "Humans have learned something important," Mark explained. "Space is too big, too dangerous for any one civilization to face alone. We've seen what the Empire built. Impressive technology, efficient systems, strong defenses. But we've also seen its flaws." The holographic display activated, showing the galaxy. But instead of the old Imperial sectors marked in uniform colors, it now showed a vibrant mix of territories and independent regions. "Each species brings something unique," Mark continued. "The Empire's mistake was trying to make everyone the same. Our strength comes from being different." Dr. Lisa Walker stepped forward, activating another display. It showed new technologies, combinations of Imperial science and innovations from various species. "Together, we've already made advances that none of us could have achieved alone." The flying clouds had improved faster than light travel. The rock dwellers had revolutionized shield technology. Humans had tied it all together with their adaptability and innovative thinking. "We propose a new Galactic Council," Mark announced. "Not ruled by any one species, but guided by all. The Empire's representatives will have a seat at this table, adding their experience to our shared future." Stone stood slowly. The Empire had never imagined accepting such terms, but as he looked around the room, he saw something his civilization had never achieved: genuine unity born from diversity. "We accept," he said, his voice carrying the weight of history. "The Empire must change with the times." As the surrender was signed, celebrations erupted across thousands of worlds. But in Earth's command center, General Roberts watched the long-range sensors with careful attention. "You're worried about something," Mark said, joining him after the ceremony. Roberts nodded. "We've explored barely a fraction of the galaxy. The Empire thought they were invincible, and look what happened. We need to stay ready." That's why we're stronger together, Mark replied. Every species watching a different direction, thinking in different ways. We'll face whatever's out there as a united galaxy. In the following months, the galaxy transformed. The rigid imperial lanes were replaced by a web of trading routes. Cultural exchange flourished. Military technology advanced rapidly, as each species contributed their unique perspectives. The Empire's warning to other galaxies changed too. The original message about avoiding war with humans was updated. Humanity has shown us a better way. They defeated us not through superior strength, but by bringing out the best in others. They turned enemies into allies, weaknesses into strengths. The galaxy is no longer ruled by fear, but united in diversity. Admiral James, standing at the same window where he first reviewed the reports about humans, smiled at the changes. Ships of all designs now flew past, each reflecting their creator's unique nature. "Was this what you expected?" Mark asked, joining him. "No," James admitted. "This is better." The Empire taught everyone to be the same. Humanity taught the galaxy to be itself. As they watched, a new ship class took its first flight. Designed by humans, built by the Empire's engineers, powered by flying cloud technology, and armored by rock dwellers. It was ugly, unconventional, and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Just like the new civilization that had built it.